Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Fox Trevize here for our Saturday weekly news recap. Not another Kyle Rittenhouse trial update, because those are over. Because Kyle was acquitted on all counts, which is something that we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks and had a great stream on last night. So tonight we get to kind of switch gears and go back to other news, because there is actually other things going on in the world. But before we do that, we would like to say that we have a great show for you tonight, and we would like to thank our sponsors who make the show possible. We would especially like to thank those of you who donate to us financially, including Kaylette, Ori Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erkin, The White Lion, The White Wolf, The Timber Wolf, and all of you who watch us. Money is not the only way you can give. We appreciate you liking and subscribing to us on DLive, Twitch, and YouTube. And we especially like when you share links to the channel on any social media you happen to find yourself on, as the algorithm does not do that for us. Only you guys can share our links. Not going to get any help from the YouTube algorithms, that's for sure. Alrighty. So, our first kind of opening thing here is a bit of a funny video. It is a video that comes from a freshman congressional representative and absolute smoke show, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert of Colorado, who made a rather compelling speech about her fellow representatives on the floor this week in response to the Democrats trying to force Republicans out of their committee assignments. Let's watch.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Democrat policies are so pathetic and have done so poorly that the left has nothing else to do but troll the internet looking for ways to get offended and then try to target members and strip them of their committees. This is a dumb waste of the House's time. But since the Speaker has designated the floor to discuss members' inappropriate actions, shall we? The Jihad Squad member from Minnesota has paid her husband, and not her brother husband, the other one, over $1 million in campaign funds. This member is allowed on the Foreign Affairs Committee while praising terrorists. A Democrat chairwoman incited further violence in the streets outside of a courthouse. And then the cherry on top. My colleague and 3-month presidential candidate from California, who is on the Intelligence Committee, slept with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy. Let me say that again. A member of Congress who receives classified briefings was sleeping with the enemy. This is unacceptable.
Ooh, man, that was a fiery but mostly peaceful speech right there. So that was in response to the Democrats attempting to get, oh gosh, I can't even remember what his name is. Some dorky Republican who put out that anime video that we saw last week. I don't even remember what his name is. Kind of a dork. Because of that, because a Republican put out an anime video on Twitter as a joke, Nancy considered that to be a death threat because she doesn't understand what political cartoons are, and tried to strip him of his committee assignments. Now, this is a massive break with tradition, as the Republicans and Democrats, no matter who the minority party is, they will always give each other their committee picks. It's just always the committees will be biased towards whoever the majority party is. But if the Republicans pick a particular Republican to be on the committee, typically, traditionally, the Democrats would accept that. And same thing for the Democrats. If they pick a person to be on the committee, typically the Republicans would accept that. And really, we only see people being stripped of their committee assignments by their own party. Now, the Democrats, they're playing for keeps now, and so they don't hold their members accountable. Like, they don't hold, as Miss Boebert just went through, they don't hold their members from Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, accountable to different terror groups that she supports and anti-Semitic comments that she's made, and she's allowed to stay on the Foreign Affairs Committee, also with massive campaign finance frauds, and also possibly immigration fraud as well. Or how Miss Boebert also referencing Eric Swalwell, who slept with a Chinese spy named Fang Fang, who had infiltrated his campaign office for several years and then slept with him. I guess lucky him. And he's still allowed to be on the Foreign Intelligence Committee, which has access to classified documents. Yet, because one of the Republicans put out a meme on Twitter, now all of a sudden he's got to get his committee assignment stripped. And so Lauren Boebert decided to point out the hypocrisy of that if you wanted to start playing this game, we'll start playing this game. Also, in reference to that situation, I believe it was McCarthy said that, who's the minority leader right now for the Republicans in Congress. He said something to the effect that if you guys want to play this game where the Democrats start stripping Republicans of their committee assignments when they're in the majority, that's fine. We'll do the same thing when the Republicans get the majority in the next election cycle, which is definitely going to happen. And we just won't have any Democrats on any committees. I think that would actually be pretty good. I think that I think that would be pretty effective if we could just get all the Democrats off of all the committee assignments. I think that probably should have been something that we did a while ago anyways. But yeah, if McCarthy wants to go for that, I say let's do it. Democrats are playing for keeps. We need to play for keeps too. All right. So that was pretty funny. Pretty funny. There we go. Video to start off with. Our next kind of our first main story here is a exciting announcement about the unconstitutional vaccine mandate the Biden administration tried to launder through Osha. In perhaps the shortest-lived edict from the White House, the Biden vax mandate has already been suspended by the circuit courts and as of right now is no longer in effect. Let's read all about it from the New York Post here. Let's see here. All right. So OSHA suspends Biden's COVID-19 vaccine mandate after court challenge. Aw. Let's see. All right. So they say from the New York Post, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration has suspended enforcement of the Biden administration's sweeping COVID-19 vaccine mandate for large companies after a federal appeals court upheld a decision to pause it last week. Quote, while OSHA remains confident in its authority to protect workers in emergencies, OSHA has suspended activities related to the implementation and enforcement of ETS, Emergency Temporary Standard, pending future developments in the litigation, OSHA said in a statement on its website. Biden announced the mandate in September and asked OSHA to draft up workplace rules that implement the order, which would mandate that every company with 100 or more employees either require that they get the COVID-19 vaccine or get tested weekly and wear a face mask. Companies that failed to comply would face a $14,000 fine for every infraction, according to the OSHA rules, which were set to take effect on January 4th, before the courts got involved. Last week, a 3-member panel of the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans cited, quote, grave statutory and constitutional concerns, in upholding the stay on the implementation of the mandate. The appeals court initially issued an emergency stay on the enforcement rules on November 6th before affirming that decision last week. Aw, sorry, Biden. The requirement, which would affect over 84 million workers, prompted legal challenges from over 24 state attorney generals, as well as from religious and business groups who argue that it is unconstitutional, which the circuit courts have now confirmed. While Republican politicians have vocally opposed the mandate, even some Democrats, such as Kansas Governor Laura Kelly, have objected to Biden's directive. The Biden administration has argued that the mandate is necessary to put an end to the pandemic and reopen the economy, and that halting its implementation could lead to dozens or even hundreds of deaths. Wait, dozens or hundreds of deaths? Doesn't sound like very many compared to what the death rate has been. But this whole idea that the economy is not open. The only thing that's not open about the economy is just government regulating it to death right now. It certainly could be open. The blue or the red states appear to be open. I'm in a pretty reddish state right now, and I mean, this whole we haven't really had anything significant in our area that I could consider like a difference from COVID. No policies implemented, no lockdowns or restrictions on where we can go. I haven't really seen anything in like almost 12 months now. Just the red states, it's over. It's been over. The blue states, really the blue cities, are just living in this perpetual psychosis where, I don't know, it's almost like a Stockholm syndrome where they're just desperate to still be in the COVID battle, that the crazy hectic time that it was the first 6 months. And now, I don't know, it's just it's definitely two worlds right now, where you've got the cities that are still on lockdown and all these crazy restrictions and mandates on gathering sizes and all that stuff. And I don't know, it's just not in the red states. If the blue states and blue cities want to keep shut down, I don't really got a problem with that if that's what they want to do. They can go ahead and starve themselves of capital and all that stuff. That'd be great. Maybe they'll have less power in the next election cycle. Alrighty, I think that's about it on what we'll read through here. But basically, the key news here is that Osha is now no longer enforcing the vaccine mandate. We'll see where this goes with the courts, but as of right now, the courts being able to stop it from happening, this could get the mandate get stuck for quite a few months now, and maybe the Supreme Court will pick it up. Which actually, the way that this will end up going is that either the circuit court will either send it up to the Supreme Court, or the Supreme Court will just refuse to hear it. Therefore, the lower decision will stay. So really, the only way that this gets undone right now is if the Supreme Court decides to undo it, which I don't think that they would. It's hard to say. I know that our three supposedly conservative Trump justices have not really been everything that was sold. They've not really lived up to the hype that they had around them. But either way, I'm still not seeing the Supreme Court doing trying to overturn this to implement the vax mandate. I don't see that happening. So it should be this could be just the end of the vaccine mandate. However, we also saw how the Biden administration did this with the eviction moratorium, where the eviction moratorium was declared unconstitutional, so they stopped it, and then they re-implemented it a day later with slightly tweaked language that was effectively the same thing. So what we might see is the vaccine mandate come back with slightly different language and just try to re-implement it, even though the previous version was declared unconstitutional. Because Biden doesn't really care, and the Democrats really don't care about constitutionality. They just kind of, we got power, we want to use it. And even if we don't have power, we're still going to use it. And the courts can't really do anything about it. So, I guess we'll see what happens. But as of right now, the vaccine mandate is dead. All right. Next story we got tonight is about the FBI, who is definitely the enemy of the people. And saying that probably just got me put on a list. All right, so before we get into our current FBI story, that's the specific one for this week, let's do a quick recap on a story that was covered last month. So last month, I covered a story about how the Biden administration had directed the National School Board Association, a union representing school boards, to send a letter to the FBI requesting that the FBI investigate angry parents who attended school board meetings as domestic terrorists. You see, the Biden administration can't just outright direct the FBI to start investigating their political enemies as terrorists. So Joe Biden had to launder his request through the NSBA. And then, like good little Gestapos, Attorney General Merrick Garland then had the FBI use this astroturfed request as a justification to direct the FBI field offices to start investigating parents as possible domestic terrorists. AG Garland was then called before the House of Representatives to address the issue. During his testimony, he said that the FBI was not spying on parents and was not treating them as domestic terrorists. He said this under oath, and he also claimed that the FBI was only checking with local law enforcement to see if they needed help in dealing with possible threats of violence. Surprise, surprise, though, it turns out that was all a lie. All right, so here's our story this week from Breitbart, because they had the exclusive on it. Jim Jordan demands FBI Director Wray disclose all counterterrorism efforts against parents after whistleblower report. Uh-oh. Whistleblowers. We're supposed to like whistleblowers, aren't we? If their names are Vindman or another name that I can't say on YouTube. All right, so from Breitbart, Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio demanded on Thursday that the FBI submit to the House Judiciary Committee any records related to counterterrorism tools that the agency is using against parents expressing outrage at school boards. Breitbart News learned exclusively. Jordan, who serves as the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee, sent a letter to FBI Director Christopher Wray detailing the committee's requests after Jordan published an email on Tuesday from a whistleblower inside the FBI that revealed the agency's counterterrorism and criminal divisions had created a, quote, threat tag for FBI officials to apply to investigations into threats made against school board administrators. So, basically, this whistleblower said, hey, Jim Jordan, I know that you guys were just investigating the FBI, and the FBI just testified to you that they weren't investigating parents as terrorists, but here's a leaked whistleblower internal email, which we'll get through in a second here. Here's an internal email from the FBI where not only are they investigating parents as domestic terrorists, they actually have a threat tag where they're tagging these people in an FBI system, in FBI databases, and probably having some kind of automated surveillance collection on them as a result of that tag. So kind of the opposite of what Merrick Garland testified. We'll see if there's any consequences for that. But let's continue reading. So, quote, we are investigating the troubling attempts by the Department of Justice and the White House to use the heavy hand of federal law enforcement to target concerned parents at local school board meetings and chill their protected First Amendment activity, the letter begins. So this is which we're going to skip over this, but this is the letter that Jim Jordan sent to the FBI director. The more interesting thing that was published was the emails, the leaked emails from the FBI, which we'll look at that in a second. Breitbart continues. The Biden administration's Justice and Education departments have come under fire in recent weeks after Attorney General Merrick Garland released a memo on October 4th stating that he was directing the FBI to engage in local educational matters because of an alleged, quote, disturbing spike in harassment and intimidation and threats of violence against school board administrators, board members, teachers, and staff who participate in the vital work of running our nation's public schools, all of which was not shown in any evidence. There was no statistics. Merrick Garland had no actual reports of this other than from the NSBA, which they made that up because the Biden administration just laundered a letter of complaint through them so that they would have an excuse to go after parents. It's almost like they just made up a threat of terror so that they could then, I don't know, I guess spy on you just to prevent terror that never had any evidence was going to happen in the first place. That's weird. I wonder if they've ever done that before. Merrick Garland's letter came shortly after the National School Board Association sent a letter to President Joe Biden on September 30th seeking federal law enforcement assistance to handle outraged parents who were allegedly partaking in acts of malice, violence, and threats against public school officials. The letter suggests that such acts might warrant domestic terrorism and hate crimes classifications. Ooh. In response to a massive public outcry over the reference to domestic terrorism, the NSBA retracted its letter on October 22nd, apologizing for some of the language it had initially used and clarifying that the NSBA does value the voices of parents. Unlikely. Garland, however, testified to both the Senate and House Judiciary Committees in late October and gave no indication that he intends to modify or retract his own message against parents when he was pressed by Republicans on the subject. Garland, as Jordan noted on Tuesday in a public letter to Attorney General about the whistleblower document, testified that the FBI was, quote, not using federal counterterrorism, keyword there, tools to target concerned parents. Jim Jordan called into question the accuracy and completeness of Garland's testimony based on the whistleblower revelation and offered the Attorney General an opportunity to amend his testimony. So just to kind of put it in like simpler terms here, Biden administration wants to use the FBI to go after political adversaries, which is you. So the Biden administration gets the school board union to send a letter back to the Biden administration saying, hey, there's parents are causing terrorism. Yeah, that's it, terrorism, with no evidence of any of this. And then the Joe Biden administration's like, well, we can't have terrorists running around the school boards. You got to protect the kids, right? So now we're going to have an excuse to activate the FBI, even though the whole excuse is just all based off of the circular reasoning of this information that there is no evidence of any terrorist activity at all. And then when asked about it, Attorney General Merrick Garland just lied about it. And now we know for a fact that he lied about it because Jim Jordan has received internal communications from the FBI stating that they are using federal counterterrorism resources to target parents at school board meetings across the country, which is really incredible. Let's see here. So Jim Jordan says in a tweet, the FBI spied on President Trump's campaign. They abused the FISA process, and now they are targeting parents. And then he just tweeted out another copy of his letter. But he also, more interestingly, tweeted out a copy of the email the whistleblower leaked to him. So this is we're going to read through this real quick here. All right. So this is a email from internally from the FBI. So if you look up at the top here, it says to FBI_Sachs, and it's got the actual email address blanked out. But that would be Sachs would be special agent in command. I think there's another word in there too I might be missing, but basically it's the lead field agent. And because this isn't going to just one, it just says FBI_Sachs. This email would have been sent to every single FBI special agent like in command. So all the field offices in the country would have received this email. The leaders of every field office would have received this email, which is pretty big deal. Skipping down to the third paragraph here, basically the first two paragraphs just kind of reiterate the reason why they're doing this. But the third paragraph's where the meat of it is. Quote, and again, this email was sent to all FBI special agent commanders. As a result, the counterterrorism and criminal divisions created a threat tag EDU officials to track instances of related threats. We ask that your offices apply the threat tag to investigations and assessments of threats specifically directed against school board administrators, board members, teachers, and staff. The purpose of the threat tag is to help scope this threat on a national level and provide an opportunity for comprehensive analysis of the threat picture for effective engagement with law enforcement partners at all levels. When evaluating potential threats, we ask you to attempt to identify the following. And then they go through kind of the what kind of activities would apply this threat tag to. But This is a pretty big deal because the counterterrorism and criminal divisions, I guess, departments within the FBI, like I would imagine that counterterrorism has to do with terrorism. And Jim Jordan asked, are you using counterterrorism resources to investigate parents? Because that's a pretty big deal if you're, again, handling just concerned parents at a school board meeting and you're now running them through a counterterrorism database. That's a little aggressive. There is a way for law enforcement to handle this that's somewhere between a pat on the back or treating them as a terrorist. But this is the heavy hand of authoritarianism, which is, as we just talked about with the Joe Biden vaccine mandate, they don't really care if it's constitutional or not. They just want to exercise power, and they're going to do it any way they can. Sometimes they get caught, and it appears that they've gotten caught this time. And I guess we'll see if there's anything that's done about this. But Jim Jordan has requested that that Merrick Garland come back to court, or come back to Congress and explain what exactly it is that he lied about, and maybe there'll be some. Well, I doubt it, but maybe there'll be some consequences for lying to Congress. There never is, but maybe there should be. But yeah, there you go. This is an internal email from the FBI. Recent too, from October 20th, and the FBI is, in fact, they are treating parents who complain at school board meetings as terrorists, running them through counterterrorism databases. That's wild. All right. And then this is all on the heels of, so you got the FBI being activated now to go after Joe Biden's political enemies, which are, the key to the Democrat strategy long term is to get your kids, right? They're coming for your children. Well, the schools are how they're doing that. And now that parents are kind of waking up to that, well, now we got to use the FBI to stop them, because it's really important that the Democrats get your kids. If you try to stop the Democrats from getting your kids, well, their whole plan might fall apart. So it's really important that they use the FBI to stop you from doing that. The other thing that they're apparently using the FBI for is preventing the embarrassment of the regime here. I didn't realize that the FBI was also a PR strategist for the Joe Biden administration, but apparently it is. This is a story that I think we've forgotten to cover for the last 2 weeks now. But you may have heard that Project Veritas, several associates, including James O'Keefe himself, were raided by the FBI a few weeks ago. So we will, on projectveritas.com, they've got a whole timeline of all the pertinent events, but we'll watch just James O'Keefe's initial video explaining what happened to him, and we'll talk about it here in a second.
By making this statement, I am putting myself at great risk because on November 4th, Project Veritas came under attack. I awoke to the news that apartments and homes of Project Veritas journalists, or former journalists, had been raided by FBI agents. It appears the Southern District of New York now has journalists in their sights for the supposed crime of doing their jobs lawfully and honestly, or at least this journalist. I had to think long and hard before making this statement. It's a decision that only I can make. They don't want me to defend myself and immediately try to silence me. That's why the cover letter to the grand jury subpoena we received contains this language. Quote, "The government hereby requests that you voluntarily refrain from disclosing the existence of the subpoena to any third party. While you are under no obligation to comply with our request, we are requesting you not to make any disclosure in order to preserve the confidentiality of the investigation and because the disclosure of the existence of this investigation might interfere with and impede the investigation." Unquote. But while the Department of Justice requested us to not disclose the existence of the subpoena, something very unusual happened. Within an hour of one of our reporters' homes being secretly raided by the FBI, the New York Times, who we are currently suing for defamation, contacted the Project Veritas reporter to ask for comment. We do not know how the New York Times was aware of the execution of a search warrant at our reporter's home or the subject matter of the search warrant, as a grand jury investigation is secret. The FBI took materials of current former Project Veritas journalists, despite the fact that our legal team previously contacted the Department of Justice and voluntarily conveyed unassailable facts that demonstrate Project Veritas's lack of involvement in criminal activity and or criminal intent. Like any reporter, we regularly deal with the receipt of source information and take steps to verify its authenticity, legality, and newsworthiness. Our efforts were the stuff of responsible, ethical journalism, and we are in no doubt that Project Veritas acted properly at each and every step. However, it appears journalism itself may now be on trial. Late last
So there you go. That's the initial part of the story. Is the Veritas team was raided by the FBI. James will go on to explain that the Veritas team came into possession of a diary allegedly belonging to Joe Biden's daughter. In that diary, there was very scandalous information about Joe Biden's pedophilic proclivities. We'll just say that. Now, this diary has been floating around for some time, or purported excerpts from it have been floating around for about a year now. However, it appears that Veritas had the original copy of it, and nobody had really reported on it much yet because it was unverified. It was kind of unverifiable. But now you've got the FBI raiding Veritas, and that's what James will go on to explain. That's the cause of the raid. Raiding this news outlet looking for Joe Biden's daughter's diary. That's pretty wild. So if anything was going to authenticate that diary, it was definitely going to be the FBI raiding Veritas to find it. So what does this mean for the rest of us? Well, basically, if you're not being raided by the FBI at this moment, it's just because they haven't had time to get to you yet. But they're certainly willing to do it. They're certainly willing for the crime of not allowing your children to be indoctrinated with Democrat talking points. You're going to be labeled a counter-terrorist. For the crime of embarrassing the administration, you're going to have your house raided and your stuff stolen. And then to boot, you're going to have your private details and your private information leaked to, establishment media sources so that they can then embarrass you in the court of public opinion. This is pretty wild and unprecedented attack from the Biden administration. Now Biden probably learned this from Obama. Obama was just a little more covert about it. Obama famously using the IRS to go after conservative groups and really do some horrific things to destroy them. And that was just allowed to happen, and nobody really did anything about it, except for it was kind of in the background, right? Yeah, the IRS investigating you is not as really scandalous or juicy as the FBI busting down your door at 5 a.m. Apparently, when James got busted, and it was around 6 a.m., and he was not quite clothed, and they took him out in handcuffs, and they stole all of his stuff. And then they leaked all of Veritas's private internal communications to the New York Times, who James just described. They're currently suing for defamation. And so New York Times somehow became aware of these raids within an hour, even though there's really no way that they could have known unless the New York Times has people watching Veritas employees at all hours of the day. No, it's likely the FBI tipped them off the same way CNN got tip-offs when the FBI raided, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. Roger Stone. Roger Stone got raided, and somehow CNN was there to capture it all. No, that's how authoritarian regimes work, is they will utilize the power of the police state and utilize the power of the state propagandists to destroy you utterly. And that's what they're doing right now. I think we knew that this was coming. I know this has been warned about for a long time. It's just, here it is. It's here now. So the FBI is definitely the enemy of the people. I think I brought this up last week, but Steven Crowder has now officially said that he thinks the FBI should be abolished. I welcome him to the fray. I've been saying that for about 2 years now. And I think that this is just further indicative that there is no good boots on the ground. You got this whistleblower that leaked some of this information that helped us find out about some of this terrible things that the FBI is doing to parents. But is that enough good to save the FBI as an institution, or is it just something that it was worth a try, but we just need to disband it and either rebuild it or use something else? It's always been my contention that before the FBI, we had and we still have the U.S. Marshals. I think that everything that the FBI is doing could be handled by the U.S. Marshals, and that there's really no reason for the FBI, especially what is the FBI protecting us from? Certainly they're not protecting us from the riots in any way. We know that during the Rittenhouse trial, we found out that the FBI had drone surveillance watching the people trying to not have their stuff burned down and not using any of that footage to prosecute the rioters or Antifa or BLM. So what are they really doing other than just harassing and abducting American citizens who just happen to be on the wrong side of the politics for the current regime? I don't see them as protecting anybody. I really only see them as a threat to the political enemies of Joe Biden, which is that's a pretty big problem. And at this point, we would be better and safer without them. Alrighty. Next story is about the lead wave. So, you guys have heard about the blue waves and the red waves, but who the hell cares about those? The only wave that matters is the lead wave. The lead wave is sweeping across the country. I speak, of course, about the numerous states adopting constitutional carry laws over the past few years. You can see here on the screen, we got a kind of a an animated timeline of the country and how each of the states have kind of over the last 30 to 40 years become more and more constitutional in the right to keep and bear arms. As we'll see with these color schemes here, the red is no issue. So that was private citizens are not allowed to carry concealed handguns. Then you had yellow, which was may issue, and that is a permit is required and granting of such permits is partially at the discretion of local authorities. So you had to go grovel to your sheriff, and if you're a family member or a family friend, like he'd probably say yes. If he didn't know who you were, maybe you could grease his palms a little bit, maybe you could get one, but probably not. Then you had blue, which is shall issue jurisdictions. A permit to carry is required, but the granting of such permits is subject only to meeting certain criteria, and the granting authority has no discretion in awarding the permit. So basically, you have to meet certain criteria, but as long as you meet those criteria, you can't be told no. However, you have to carry your license, your papers, please. And then green on the map here is constitutional carry. No permit is required to carry a concealed handgun. And we can see, once the animation restarts here, that in the 80s here, we had a lot of red, a lot of yellow, and only a couple of shale issues. Nobody had constitutional carry. And then we start rolling through the 90s, and after the kind of mid-90s there, all of a sudden you start getting a lot of states are doing shale issue. Still got a few states with no issue. And then more and more and more, got that lead wave. And then by the time you get to the 2010s there, all of a sudden you start seeing this wave of constitutional carry. And then you hit the Trump administration 4 years, and all of a sudden it just explodes. And now you've got almost half the country now with unrestricted constitutional carry. That is the lead wave. And this week, Ohio is attempting to join the fray, with the Ohio House of Representatives voting 60-32 to pass Ohio House Bill 227, the constitutional carry bill, which now has to go to the Ohio State Senate for further consideration. If you are an Ohio resident from the Buckeye State, please contact your state senator and ask them to support House Bill 227. House Bill 227 allows a law-abiding adult who is at least 21 years of age and legally allowed to possess a firearm to carry a handgun without first having to obtain government permission, because you don't need to obtain government permission, or you don't need to obtain government permission. The Constitution already gave it to you. The Founding Fathers already took care of that. There's no need to have your local authoritarians dictate to you what the Constitution already told you. Let's see here. So this ensures that citizens have the right to self-defense without government red tape or delays. Additionally, this legislation maintains the existing concealed handgun license system, so citizens who still wish to obtain a permit may do so, which is that even if you're in a constitutional carry state, it is useful sometimes to still have a CCW permit for states that have reciprocation. So some states have made agreements with each other that a concealed carry in one state is valid in another state with reciprocation. And so even if your state now becomes constitutional carry, it might be nice to have that license so you can still carry in a reciprocal state. But this is good. This is good, especially with the other kind of big win that we had for the right to self-defense this week. Should not have had to fight it, but we did. Was the Kyle Rittenhouse case, which has, I guess, by the skin of our teeth, not the best thing that it had to even come under scrutiny to begin with, but the outcome of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial has shown that once again the American people do support the right to self-defense, that you do have the right to defend yourself, and you have the right to defend yourself with a firearm, with a 2A constitutionally protected arms. So the Democrats at the city level and the federal level, they really seem to think that gun control is a winning issue. They really think that is what's going to get them the votes. They think that's a popular decision, and I say, look at this animated map here, where you go through the years, you go through the decades, and it just seems like, I don't know, it seems like Americans are trending the other direction. It seems like Americans are trending more towards more unrestricted gun use, not more restrictions, more unrestrictions. And I think that given the lead wave across the country at the state level, I think that we could be getting close to having enough national support for some kind of federal constitutional carry, which really is already the law of the land due to the Constitution. I don't know why we would have to reiterate it, but it would be nice. It would be nice to see the federal government step in and say, we are going to reaffirm the rights of the Constitution, and it's just states. If you're a member of the Union, you don't have the right to restrict in any way, to infringe the right to keep and bear arms. There's also, I believe that there might be two. I know that there's at least one Second Amendment case at the Supreme Court level right now. Traditionally, the Supreme Court does not take 2A cases. I think that they've taken like 3 in like the last 250 years. I think the last one they took up was like in the 80s, and the one before that was in the 80s before the 80s, so like the 1880s. They don't see gun stuff very often, so they've had a lot of opportunities to, and they always punt on it because they don't want to make a decision. But what would be nice is that we don't have to necessarily have the legislature reaffirm what the Constitution already says is the law of the land. It would be nice for the courts to interpret that as such and just say every state is constitutional carry because every state is under the Constitution. So this is good. while the Democrats seem to be gathering more and more power, sending the turning the FBI more and more into the Soviet-style secret police. Well, the one thing the Soviet people didn't have was, well, actually, maybe that's not true. Soviet people did have a lot of guns, so maybe I'm missing my analogy here. But certainly, it'll be less easy for the Democrats to use their jackbooted thugs, whether it's pedos who just got out of jail, or pedos in the FBI, or just pedos in general. It'll be more and more difficult for them to send their goons after us if this is the current state of the country. If the country has been trending for the last 30 years to be more and more unrestricted gun use, that's a good thing. That's how, even with the Leviathan federal government and the sanctioned political violence of the Democrat Party, this is how we counter that. This is what protects you from what they are trying to do to you. And I think it's a good thing, and I think it needs to keep happening. If you're in a state that doesn't have, isn't on the lead wave, maybe you could call your congressman too, your state congressman too, and tell them that you would like them to join the other union states who have decided that the Constitution is an important document. All right. Our next story is a little bit odd. And it starts with a question. Does McCarthy not suck? So McCarthy is the Republican minority leader. So he's like Nancy, just with less power and less ice cream. And he did a little bit of an interesting attempt at serving the people this week, where he filibustered from the House. So we're all very familiar with the filibuster from the Senate, but it's a big deal in the Senate because you can close it out if you have a majority vote. In the House, however, you can't close out a filibuster. So McCarthy, in order to try to block the Build Back Better Act, McCarthy filibustered for 8 hours and 42 minutes on Thursday night into Friday morning. Let's see here. So Breitbart has a story. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy yielded the floor on Friday morning at 5:11 a.m. after speaking for a record 8 hours and 42 minutes against the Democrats' multi-trillion-dollar Build Back Better social spending bill. Quote, "My 1 minute is almost up," McCarthy joked at 5:04 a.m., referring to the fact that members of the House were originally given only 60 seconds to state their views on the bill before the vote was meant to have taken place on Thursday evening. McCarthy's address smashed the previous record, an 8-hour, 7-minute address by Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi in 2018 in support of the Delayed Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA Act, which benefits illegal aliens who arrived as minors. Unlike Pelosi, who spoke during the daylight hours, McCarthy spoke all night long, though not in 4-inch high heels. Thank you for that fact check there, Breitbart. Much appreciated. And I don't know if that's been proven or not, though. I haven't seen any pictures. It could be fake news. Throughout the early part of his address, McCarthy was heckled and interrupted by irate Democrats, but Republicans, temporarily on duty in the chair, refused to tell him to stop and repeatedly gavelled the House into order as he spoke. So what I think happened, and this often happens, is the Speaker of the House typically has the gavel, right? But they sometimes they want to talk, or Nancy, sometimes she wants to go get ice cream or a facelift or something like that, and so they will pass the gavel off to somebody else to maintain order in their stay while they go off and take a break or whatever it is. And so what it seems like happened is that Nancy accidentally gave the gavel to a Republican, not expecting them to do this, and then the Republican who had the gavel just decided, well, McCarthy can go ahead and speak for 9 hours, and I'm not going to give the gavel back to anybody, which is kind of funny. I wonder how far that can be pushed. And also, I doubt that the Republicans will ever be given temporary gavel duty ever again after this, but possibly worth it. But the Republican temporarily on duty in the chair refused to tell McCarthy to stop and repeatedly gavelled the House into order as he spoke. Eventually, the Democrats surrendered and adjourned the proceedings until Friday morning at 8 a.m., leaving McCarthy and the Republicans in the chamber to continue. Unlike the Senate, though, there is no filibuster rule in the House that suspends the vote as long as one member continues speaking, but McCarthy just refused to stop. McCarthy broke down the bill, attacking it for lavish spending on Democrats favored special interest groups while raising taxes on middle-class Americans and providing an effective tax cut for wealthy, high-tax Democrat-run states. He noted that the bill does not spend on border security or expanding American energy production, and that the Democrats rejected the Republican amendments, including one to prohibit funding from going to the Chinese Communist Party. Wow, that's I think that should probably just be like a default rider on all of our bills, but kind of it's one of those things where it's like I didn't realize that was a thing that like happened. I kind of thought that was like by default we didn't do that, but not only does it appear that it requires special language to prevent that from happening, also the Democrats vehemently oppose it. That's a little weird. All right. So throughout his address, McCarthy was backed by Republican members who sat behind him to present a unified appearance for the C-SPAN cameras, which nobody was watching, which continued to roll overnight. Noting that his speech was the longest minute ever given by this body, McCarthy added that the country was at a tipping point and that the bill, which will add $750 billion to the deficit in the first 5 years, according to the Congressional Budget Office, represented a step towards socialist policies that had already failed in other countries and government programs that could never be undone. Democrats, citing their own analysis, claimed that the bill would reduce the deficit, a key point since President Joe Biden has repeatedly claimed that it will add zero to the deficit and that it is, quote, fully paid for. Republicans rose to their feet in a standing ovation as McCarthy finished and the House chamber emptied. Democrats are expected to hold a delayed vote on Friday morning, which that was yesterday, and they ended up passing it. So McCarthy, 8 hours, 42 minutes. It was a, mediocre attempt at best. He did delay the vote about 12 hours. So I guess, the Republicans already gave him a bunch of pats on the back. I'm sure he's giving himself lots of pats on the back right now. But was it really a successful attempt? Because only a few hours after he finished speaking at 5 a.m., the Build Back Better Act was passed on Friday by a slim majority of 220 votes to 213 votes. So not really that successful, were you, McCarthy? That was 8 hours and 42 minutes wasted. While many Americans will have no problem putting in double shifts, a lot of people do, especially these days, right? If you're working at all, you're you got to buy that Thanksgiving turkey that tripled in cost this year, and people are putting in double shifts of 16 hours. And I guess the standard workday of 9 to 5 was all the more that soft hands McCarthy could handle. Is 8 hours and 42 minutes. That's an awful long workday for a congressperson. Again, a lot of Americans hitting 14, 15, 16, 20-hour days, no problem. McCarthy, he can't even stand up there for 20 hours. He can barely get in a single shift. And so I'm not really sure that he deserves special commendations for speaking for so long. Yeah, he did delay the vote 12 hours, but the vote still happened and the bill was still passed. The only reason it's so surprising is because Republicans so rarely put in the effort, and so it feels like you need to really pat him on the back, right? But if McCarthy could do 9 hours, why couldn't he do 16 hours or 160 hours? Why did the Build Back Better bill still pass if McCarthy was trying to stall it out? Why isn't McCarthy still, right now, today, holding the floor and speaking? If he had the ability to just keep talking and stop this bill from going through, stop the crown piece of legislation for the Biden administration from going through, why isn't he still talking? 8 hours and 42 minutes. Yeah, sure. It's a long time. Sounds pretty crazy. But if that's really all he has to do is talk, I mean, these are politicians. You're telling me that they don't just thoroughly enjoy talking at every moment of the day? And he can only do it for about a single shift. While, again, the Americans who will be subject to the horrific inflation that this bill is going to generate. Not to mention the just destruction of manufacturing and energy economy. It's funny. This bill that passed, it's going to ruin the jobs of oil workers who are putting in 16-hour days. And to stop it, McCarthy could only muster up barely 9 hours. I don't think that he should get a pat on the back for this. Again, Republicans rose to their feet in a standing ovation as McCarthy finally finished. I don't know. I think, again, it was a valiant effort. It was surprising because, again, normally Republicans don't put in that kind of effort. But if you're going to put in the effort, why don't you do it to the point where you actually are successful in something? Force Nancy to just have to keep pushing the vote back. If the Democrats are just going to leave because they don't want to listen to Republican talking points, that's fine. I don't see what the issue is in just having McCarthy talk for 22 hours a day, for the next, 3 years. I don't see an issue with that. But apparently 9 hours is all the more that he could muster. And so I guess he gets a standing ovation for failing. We deserve better leaders. Alrighty. Our next story here. Lead, guns, bullets, tactics, QAnon, and math. Yes. Alrighty. Our next story here is a quick immigration update. So much is happening with immigration, mostly just, lots of it. And it's kind of hard to just kind of continue to repeat every week the economic and social and philosophical reasons why unfettered illegal immigration is a problem. So this week, instead of kind of going through the reason why it's bad, I'm just going to assume that you understand that it is bad. Just it's self-evidently bad. And so I'm just going to kind of run through a couple of headlines here and hopefully, in your own mind, you can understand why they're so bad. Because otherwise, I'm just repeating myself every week about why immigration like this is terrible. And so it's just more important to bring up the current events of it with the understanding that we understand that it's self-evidently not good for the country. So we have finally hit total border crossings at over 1.7 million illegal immigrants this year. That's just counting encounters. So that means that it's only the people that were caught crossing the borders. 1.7 million. We're on track for 2 million in the year, which is a record by double. Yet another caravan of 2,000 migrants is heading towards the southern border as we speak. Ooh, that's fun. The Biden administration was caught again busing thousands of illegal immigrants into Florida in the dead of night. And in response to this, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis responded with a letter on Thursday excoriating the Biden administration over their reckless immigration policies. DeSantis demanded the immediate and end of unvetted illegal immigrants being funneled into his state. DeSantis also suggested that as a resolution to the ones already in Florida, perhaps he would deport them to nearby blue states that support flouting the immigration laws and see how they like it. Both the states of Texas and Florida have finally started using their own state and local police forces to patrol the border and do the job that the federal government refuses to do. I guess Abbott gets a pat on the back for that too. I mean, there was nothing stopping him from deploying the National Guard and the state troopers and state law enforcement resources to the border 6 years ago. There was nothing stopping him from doing that. So I guess better late than never, but again, similar to McCarthy, I guess good job, guys, but it'd be nicer if it wasn't just medium effort, if we could actually get some results, not just, oh, look at me, I'm trying, give me a participation trophy. I don't care that you spent 9 hours on the floor. I don't care that you have finally deployed some state troopers to the border. I want to see some freaking results. I want to see the Build Back Better Act stuck forever in the House and the House essentially gridlocked for the rest of the Biden administration. That would be a result. I don't really care or want to give a pat on the back to somebody that tried to do that but failed. And then for Abbott, again, it's great that you're finally deploying the state troopers, but you should have done that a year ago or 6 years ago. So I guess thanks for the effort. You can have your participation trophy. We'll give you a pat on the back, but we deserve better. We deserve results. The Democrats are getting their results. It's about time that we start getting our results too. Alrighty. We also had, in immigration news, we also had this funny interaction between Senator Ted Cruz and Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas in Congress this week. Let's take a watch.
All right, how about this? How many children have been in the Biden cages in calendar year 2021?
Senator, I respectfully disagree with your use of the term cages.
Fine, you can disagree with it. How many children have been in the Biden cages? I've been to the Biden cages. I've seen the Biden cages. How many children have you detained at the Donna Tent facility in the cages you built to hold kids? How many children have been in those cages?
Senator, I can provide to you the following figure that and let me say that when a child,
it's a simple question. How many children have been in those cages?
I respectfully am not familiar with the term cages and to what you are referring. There are
enclosures in which they are locked in which I took photographs and put them out because you blocked the press and didn't want people to see the Biden cages. The secure facilities in which they are locked down in Donna, those facilities, how many children have been in them?
Senator, there are three types of facilities. There's
the Donna Tent cages, the Donna Tent City. Let's take the Donna facility. How many children have been there?
That is a soft-sided facility. It is not a...
Okay, are you going to answer the question, how many children have been in that facility?
I will have to circle back with you with the precise number.
Oh, by the way, here's a photograph of the Biden cages.
That, Senator, that is precisely why I articulated...
Children sleeping on floors, crashed in upon each other. When I took this photograph, the rate of COVID positivity was over 10%.
May I speak, Senator?
You can answer the question. How many kids have been in these conditions?
That is precisely why I stated in March of this year that a Border Patrol station is no place for a child, number one.
Okay, but
number two,
all right,
that is
Secretary Mayorkas, you're not answering my questions.
Oopsies. Ted Cruz has been, I think I've made more than clear my feelings on him on the show, but he does do very good, I guess, cross-examination during hearings. That's kind of the thing that he does. He's really good at making sound bites like that. We'll see if he can convert that into any kind of actual policy, any kind of actual results, similar to all the rest of the people that I was talking about. Republicans really good at putting in the effort, not as good at getting out the results. But Ted Cruz has been doing pretty good with his hearings lately, and he's as you saw that tactic that he was using, he's been using that a lot lately, where normally people in hearings and in congressional hearings will just dodge the question and they'll move on. And Ted Cruz has been having this tactic where he'll ask a rather simple question and the person will dodge it, and he will just spend 5 or 7 or 10 minutes just re-asking them the same question over and over and over again to see if he can get them to answer it, and they usually just don't. But it does create interesting sound bites where obvious corrupt administrators in the Biden administration are refusing to answer basic questions about what they are doing. And they have an awful lot of power, and Congress is supposed to have oversight for them. And so the idea that they can't answer simple questions to their oversight committees, maybe there should be some consequences for that. But as we know, Republicans aren't very good at getting consequences or results out of anything, so I wouldn't really expect anything to come of that hearing. But great soundbite, great effort, Ted Cruz. Clap, clap, clap. All right, our next story. This one's a fun one. Kamala Harris was president for about 3 hours yesterday. For those of you who are not aware, Kamala Harris was acting president for a few hours on Friday. It has long been a requirement that the president must pass on the powers of the presidency to the vice president if they become physically or mentally impaired or become unable, even for a short period of time, to perform their duties of commander-in-chief. This passing of the powers of the presidency can be voluntary or involuntary in the case of incapacitation. On the 19th of November, Joe Biden voluntarily handed over the presidency to Kamala Harris before undergoing a colonoscopy, which required him to be under general anesthesia. Well, while many have feared what a Kamala presidency would herald, it actually wasn't that bad. For example, while Kamala Harris was president, almost immediately after she became president, Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty on all counts as his verdict was handed down mere hours after Kamala took office. So, pretty good day for that. Again, a lot of people kind of scared of a Kamala Harris presidency, but seemed to be not so bad. Other than, I guess, presiding over the office of presidency while Kyle was let go free, Kamala didn't really do a whole lot on her first day as president, which is about as much as we can expect from it, other than that, Kamala didn't do a whole lot on her first day, which is about as much as we can expect from a diversity hire like her. It did lead to some interesting questions, though, having her be president, though. Like, does being under general anesthesia significantly change Joe Biden's mental faculties? I don't think it does, but apparently they thought it did enough to give Kamala the presidency. And the other question about the colonoscopy in general, is that related to other stories of Joe Biden's incontinence, supposedly, allegedly? Proving, however, that Joe Biden is not just incontinent on the back end, Joe Biden could not help but comment on the Kyle Rittenhouse being found not guilty on all counts the second that he woke up from his anesthesia and took back the presidency. Here was Joe Biden's initial statement after he got back from his colonoscopy.
I just heard a moment ago.
Do you have any reaction?
I didn't watch the trial.
Do you have any reaction to the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict?
I just heard a moment ago.
Do you have any reaction?
I didn't watch the trial, so
Do you stand by your past comment equating him to white supremacy?
Well, look, I stand by what the jury has concluded. The jury system works, and we have to abide by it.
That was pretty wild. Again, that was Joe Biden, minutes after coming out of anesthesia. And just, Joe Biden, while you were out, while Kamala was president, they let this kid that you ran your campaign on, you ran a campaign on this particular kid being a white supremacist. And while you were gone, while Kamala was president, he was let go free. And then Joe Biden was asked, how do you feel about your previous comments that he was a white supremacist? Do you still think that? And then he didn't answer that, which means that he does still think that. He didn't deny it. And he just said that he thinks the jury system works. However, when you come out of anesthesia, you're a little groggy. And so sometimes your mouth doesn't quite say what you mean to say. So later yesterday, on Friday, after basically stating that he still thought Kyle was a white supremacist, but the jury did well, Joe Biden revised his statement with a written press release on Friday. So from the White House, statement by President Biden. While the verdict in Kenosha will leave many Americans feeling angry and concerned, myself included. Wow. So the verdict has made Joe Biden angry. That's pretty wild that he would say that the verdict in Kenosha, after he just said, I trust in the jury process, he's just saying, oh, well, I'm actually not just upset or concerned or confused. It's just Joe Biden is angry that 12 Wisconsinites decided to let this kid who was chased down by a bunch of pedophiles and Democrat voters who were trying to kill him. Joe Biden's angry that this kid was let go free. It kind of makes sense, too, because the people that were chasing down Kyle and trying to kill him, those were Joe Biden's supporters. Those were Joe Biden voters. That was his demographic, his constituency. Joe Biden's constituency is rapists, pedophiles, domestic abusers, armed robbers. That's all stuff that Joe Biden supports and has supported throughout his long career. That seems to be kind of the Democrat MO. Most Democrats are now associated with something to that degree. And they seem to have just absolute unending support for criminals in those categories. So I can see why Joe Biden would be angry that the person who didn't let Joe Biden's voters kill him, I can see why Joe Biden might be angry about that. So Joe Biden says, while the verdict in Kenosha will leave many Americans feeling angry and concerned, myself included, we must acknowledge that the jury has spoken. I ran on a promise to bring Americans together because I believe that what unites us is far greater than what divides us. I know that we're not going to heal our country's wounds overnight, but I remain steadfast in my commitment to do everything in my power to ensure that every American is treated equally with fairness and dignity under the law. I urge everyone to express their views peacefully and consistent with the rule of law. Violence and destruction of property have no place in our democracy. The White House and federal authorities have been in contact with the Governor Evers' office, governor of Wisconsin, to prepare for any outcome in this case, and I have spoken to the governor this afternoon and offered support and assistance needed to ensure public safety. Well, why would he need to ensure public safety if Kyle was found not guilty? I thought it was the Republicans and the conservatives that were going to riot and destroy stuff if the verdict came back guilty, right? No, they're only concerned about violence if it came back not in their favor, because it's never the Republicans that are violent. It's funny that they kept calling Kyle Rittenhouse a vigilante, and it's like, I don't know if somebody getting chased down constitutes a vigilante. You kind of think of a vigilante as somebody who goes out looking for bad guys to get. Kind of seems like the bad guys came and found Kyle. I guess perhaps under that definition of vigilantism, I guess any girl that's getting raped and has, punches back or uses her tiger claws or something like that and like scratches her rapist, that woman isn't, participating in self-defense. That woman who's being raped, she's actually a vigilante because she's attacking a criminal. She should just call the cops and let the cops deal with it. Worked out pretty well for Jacob Blake. All right. So Kamala Harris presidency, not nearly as bad as we all thought it would probably be. I'm guessing if she was president for more than a couple of hours, you might start seeing some of those issues. But like I said, we were all wrong. We were all said that a President Kamala Harris would be an immediate disaster. And it appears that wasn't quite the case. So, we can all admit when we're wrong. All righty. Our next story here is... our last story, too, for the night, is Gizlane Maxwell, who hasn't killed herself yet, finally is on trial. That was, I don't know what's going to come out of this trial. I'm guessing probably not much, but it's certainly interesting that it's happening. But it kind of took a backseat to, certain other trials that I found a lot more important that were happening in the past few weeks. So Gizlane Maxwell has been in prison, not killing herself, for nearly 15 months now, awaiting trial for her integral part in the Jeffrey Epstein, who didn't kill himself, child sex organization. During this time, she has been in a 6x9 cell, not killing herself, and under constant surveillance to ensure that she does not kill herself using Clinton operatives. Gizlane claims that the guards constantly check in on her to see if she's not killed herself yet, and this prevents her from sleeping. She is also attempting to gain leniency due to poor health and also from not killing herself. 4 applications for bail by Maxwell have been turned down, despite an offer of $28.5 million from her lawyers and a promise that she won't kill herself if left unobserved for any length of time. It's good to know that she still has all that money, though perhaps her victims can use it to find some peace after she is convicted and after she doesn't kill herself. there's a lot to focus on in this case because it is possible that Maxwell may actually not kill herself and instead choose to give the names of the sorts of rich and powerful pedophiles that came to Epstein, who also didn't kill himself, to have sex with children. Those names possibly include former presidents, lots of Democrats, and lots of powerful big business moguls. So long as Gizlane Maxwell continues not killing herself, perhaps we'll find out some of those names. Though I suspect that we won't. All right, guys. Well, let's see here. All right. Oh, thank you so much for the diamond, Tatubin, and also for the follow. Much appreciated. All right, guys. Well, that was the show for the day, for the week. I thank, again, all of you who've been following through the Rittenhouse trial. Certainly that has taken up a lot of time and energy. I'm happy with the conclusion to it. We will be doing at least one more kind of update, which will be on Monday. Tucker Carlson, it was revealed last night that Tucker Carlson has been doing essentially a documentary in the background of the trial with Kyle, basically this whole time, in the lead up to the trial and then during the trial as well. Tucker Carlson Originals, who's led by Tucker Carlson, they've been doing documentaries. And so they have essentially the full documentary for Kyle, the lead up to the trial and during the trial, which is stuff that we didn't know was being filmed or taped or recorded at all. So that'll be really interesting to see. I was hoping that was out already, but it sounds like that's not going to be out till next month. However, along with getting to know Kyle, Tucker has the first big interview apparently on Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tucker Carlson will be doing a long-form interview with Kyle Rittenhouse. And so I will be screening that on Monday because I definitely want to see that and see what Kyle has to say. Kyle, as Tucker put it, a lot of people have been talking about Kyle for the last 14 months, and the only person who hasn't been able to talk about Kyle is Kyle. A lot of people talking about him and telling the world who they think he is, and the one person who hasn't been able to do that is Kyle himself. So Tucker is going to give him that opportunity, and it'll be great to see what comes of that. And then whenever the documentary from Tucker Carlson Originals drops, I will also be wanting to screen that with you guys because I think that's going to be highly fascinating. But other than that, thank you guys for joining me tonight. Have a lovely weekend. I will see you, I guess, on Monday now. And stay safe out there. This has been the Fox Trevize is signing off. See you guys.